She was running. Bare feet slapped against wet earth as branches tore at her arms, and the forest closed in around her like a living thing that had finally decided to chase her back. Amaka did not slow down. She could not. Her breath came in broken gasps, sharp and loud in her ears, drowning out the buzzing insects and the distant calls of birds settling for the night. "Leave me alone!" she screamed into the trees, her voice cracking. "I didn't ask to be empty." Her foot caught on a root, and she crashed hard onto her knees. Pain flared, but she didn't cry out. Instead she laughed, a short, hollow sound that startled even her. Empty. That was what they called her now. Amaka pushed herself up, dirt clinging to her palms. Blood trickled down her shin, warm and sticky. She wiped it absently and kept walking, slower now, deeper into the forest where the air grew cooler and heavier, thick with the smell of damp leaves and old secrets. Behind her lay Umudike village. The whispers, the stares, the pity that tasted worse than insults. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of prayers, herbs, sacrifices, and silent tears pressed into sleeping mats. 7 years with nothing to show but a hollow womb and a husband who no longer looked at her the same way. Earlier that day she had heard it again. "She is kind, yes," one woman had said, not bothering to lower her voice. "But kindness does not give a man a name." Another had laughed softly. If the gods wanted her to bear fruit, they would have opened her long ago. Amaka had stood there, holding a calabash of water, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped it. She said nothing. She never did. Silence had become her second skin. But when she returned home, the compound was quiet in a way that felt wrong. Her husband, Obinna, sat on a low stool, his back straight, his eyes fixed on the ground. "We need to talk," he said. Those words had cut deeper than any blade. Now, as dusk bled into night, Amaka stumbled into a small clearing she had never noticed before. The trees curved inward, their roots rising from the earth like coiled snakes. The air felt expectant. She stopped. Her chest tightened, and suddenly all the restraint she had built over 7 years collapsed. She sank to the ground and screamed. Not a polite cry. Not a quiet sob. A raw, tearing scream that ripped out of her chest and echoed through the forest. "I am tired," she shouted, fists pounding the earth. "I am tired of begging. I am tired of being patient. I am tired of being strong." Her voice broke. Tears streamed down her face unchecked. "Take me if you want," she whispered hoarsely. Just let me hold a child once. Even if it kills me." The forest went silent. No insects. No wind. No birds. Amaka froze. Her breath caught in her throat as the ground beneath her palms grew warm. The air shimmered, bending like heat over fire. Slowly, impossibly, a figure emerged from between the trees, tall, veiled in shadows, her form shifting like smoke wrapped in human shape. Amaka tried to stand. Her legs refused. Who are you?" she whispered. The figure stepped forward, and the earth seemed to bow beneath her feet. "I am called many names," the spirit said, her voice layered, as if many voices spoke at once. "But here I am known as Nkiru, the one who keeps what is borrowed." Amaka's heart thundered. Every story she had heard as a child came rushing back. Warnings whispered at night, tales of forests that answered prayers but never without cost. "I didn't mean," Amaka began. "You did," Nkiru interrupted gently. "You spoke from truth. And the forest heard you." The spirit knelt, her presence heavy and undeniable. "You asked for a child." Amaka nodded, trembling. "Yes." Nkiru's eyes, ancient, glowing faintly, searched her face. "I can give you one," she said. Hope exploded in Amaka's chest so suddenly it hurt. "But," the spirit continued, "she will not truly belong to you. She will be lent." Amaka swallowed. "I don't understand." "A life bound to a rule," Nkiru said. "Break it, and the forest will take back what it gave." The spirit reached into the shadows, and Amaka gasped as a baby appeared in her arms, warm, breathing, real. The child's hair shimmered pale as moonlight, white as ash, glowing softly even in the dark. "She will be called Zuri," Nkiru said. "Her life is bound to her hair. It must never be cut. Not by love. Not by envy. Not by mistake." Amaka clutched the child to her chest, sobbing openly now. "I will protect her," she promised desperately. "With my life." Nkiru's expression softened just a little. "On her 18th year," the spirit said quietly. A choice will be demanded. Only love that is pure will survive that day. The forest stirred again. The insects returned. The wind sighed through the leaves. And just like that, Nkiru was gone. Amaka sat alone in the clearing, holding a child whose hair glowed like destiny itself, unaware that her miracle had already begun counting down to its price. Amaka staggered out of the forest at dawn, dust clinging to her wrapper, eyes swollen from crying, arms wrapped tightly around the baby as if the world itself might try to snatch her away. The first person who saw her screamed, "Spirit!" A young boy shouted, dropping his basket and running. "A spirit is coming from the trees." Amaka stopped walking. Her heart slammed against her ribs as villagers poured into the narrow path, some clutching charms, others frozen in disbelief. She lowered her gaze, breathing hard, then lifted the child slightly so they could see her face. "It's a baby," Amaka said, her voice hoarse. "She's real." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But you had no belly," an old woman whispered. "Yesterday you were empty." Amaka swallowed. "The forest gave her to me." That was when Obinna pushed through the gathering. He stopped short when he saw the child. "What trick is this?" he demanded, eyes darting from Amaka's face to the baby's glowing hair. "Whose child is that?" "Our child," Amaka said firmly. Obinna laughed, sharp and bitter. "Do you think I am mad? You went into the forest barren and returned with a spirit child? Do you want to destroy my name completely?" The baby stirred, tiny fingers curling, and a soft sound escaped her lips. The glow of her white hair brightened for a brief moment, and the air around them felt warmer. Silence fell. Obinna's mouth opened, then closed. His voice dropped. "Amaka, what did you do?" "I begged," she replied simply. And someone answered. Fear crept into his eyes. "Send it back." Amaka's grip tightened. "Her name is Zuri." "She is not human," Obinna snapped. "Look at her hair." "She breathes," Amaka shot back. "She cries. She feels warmth. If that is not human enough for you, then you were never worthy of her." The crowd shifted uneasily. An elder stepped forward, leaning heavily on his staff. "We will watch," he said slowly. "If this child brings harm, the forest will answer for it. But until then, let the woman keep her miracle." Obinna stared at Amaka for a long moment, then turned away. "I want no part of this," he said. "When disaster comes, remember I warned you." He left. Amaka didn't chase him. She looked down at Zuri instead, tears slipping silently as the baby's small hand wrapped around her finger. "I'm here," Amaka whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." Years passed. Zuri grew faster than any child in Umudike. She walked early. She spoke in full sentences before most children learned their names. Her hair remained untouched, long, thick, white as moon milk, and Amaka guarded it like her own heartbeat. "Don't touch her head," she warned everyone. Not for play. Not for beauty. Not for anything. At first, the village obeyed out of fear. Then came the healings. A child fell from a tree and broke his arm. Zuri touched him, eyes closing, and the bone slid back into place with a sound like water settling. A woman labored for 2 days, her screams filling the night. Zuri stood at the doorway, whispered something no one understood, and the baby arrived moments later. "She is blessed," people whispered now. "She is dangerous," others muttered. Zuri only laughed. "Why do they stare at me, Mama?" she asked one evening, swinging her legs as Amaka braided her hair carefully. "Because they do not understand what they fear," Amaka said. Zuri grinned. "I don't feel scary." Amaka forced a smile. "Promise me something." "What?" "Never let anyone cut your hair." Zuri rolled her eyes playfully. "I know, Mama. You tell me every day." Amaka didn't laugh. She had begun to dream again. Dreams of roots tightening around ankles. Dreams of a voice counting softly in the dark. 18. 17. 16. Time was moving. And somewhere beneath Zuri's laughter, something else was growing too quiet, unseen, and hungry. By the time Zuri was 10, she had 3 friends who followed her everywhere. Sola, Tamika, and Igioma. They called themselves the Forest Four, though the villagers often whispered that Zuri was the real leader. "Catch me if you can," Zuri shouted, sprinting barefoot across the grassy clearing. Her white hair sparkled in the sun like a river of light. The other three raced after her, laughter echoing through the village. "You're cheating," Sola yelled, stumbling over a rock. "I am not cheating," Zuri giggled, spinning around. "I am gifted." Tamika frowned. "It's not fair, you always win." Zuri laughed, breathless, not noticing the slight twitch in Tamika's smile. Ijeoma and Sola were still running, but their eyes flickered now toward Zuri's glowing hair, admiration mixing with something they could not name. Amaka watched from the doorway of their small hut, a frown creasing her forehead. She called softly, "Zuri, come in for your lessons." Zuri skidded to a stop and ran over, grabbing Amaka's hands. "Mama, they're trying to beat me today, but I didn't let them." "I see," Amaka said, tightening the braid she had begun on Zuri's hair. "Remember what I told you. Your hair, it must never be harmed. Never." "I know, Mama," Zuri said, leaning against her mother. "I will never let anyone cut it." But Amaka's heart tightened. She had begun noticing the little things, the sideways glances, the lingering touches at Zuri's hair by the friends when she wasn't looking, the whispers that stopped when she approached. "Why do they always look at my hair like that?" Zuri asked one night, resting her head in Amaka's lap. "Because your hair is special," Amaka whispered, stroking the soft white strands. "And special things make people want what they cannot have." Zuri frowned. "But we share everything, Mama. We love each other. Why would they want to take it?" "Jealousy," Amaka said softly, her voice trembling. "Even the closest hearts can be poisoned by it. And sometimes it grows quietly until it is too late." Zuri hugged her tightly. "Then I will just hide it. I promise, Mama." Days passed. Zuri's powers grew stronger. She healed scraped knees, stopped village fires from spreading with whispered prayers, and sometimes Amaka swore the child could see things before they happened, foretelling rains, illnesses, even arguments that had not yet begun. The villagers were torn between awe and fear. Some approached for help, bowing respectfully. Others avoided her gaze, muttering about curses and spirits. Meanwhile, Sola, Tamika, and Ijeoma began to change. It was subtle at first. A sigh when Zuri healed someone before they could, a glance at her hair while she slept, a whispered word between themselves. "You're too perfect," Sola muttered one afternoon when Zuri was helping a boy with a fever. "It isn't fair." "Why her?" "It's just hair," Tamika said, though her fingers twitched toward the shining locks. "Just hair," Ijeoma echoed. "You don't understand. If it's cut, if we touch it, what will happen to her?" And in that moment Amaka, watching from the hut, shivered. She had felt the first ripple of jealousy, the kind that smoldered quietly before exploding. The forest whispered around them at night. Zuri slept peacefully, unaware of the eyes that now measured her hair with desire rather than friendship. Amaka's dreams grew restless. She saw a shadow reaching for Zuri, a blade glinting in silver moonlight. She woke screaming, clutching her daughter close. "It's just a dream," she whispered to herself, rocking Zuri in the dim candlelight. "It is just a dream." But somewhere in the forest, a voice murmured, "Soon the rules will be broken. Soon the price will be paid." By the time Zuri was 14, the laughter of the forest four had begun to fray. What had once been innocent fun now carried a subtle tension. Sola, Tamika, and Ijeoma still followed her everywhere. But the admiration they once felt had turned into something darker. It started with comments, half jokes, half envy. "Zuri, you always get the attention," Tamika muttered one afternoon, pushing a basket of fruit aside. "Do you have to be so perfect?" "I'm not perfect," Zuri said, shocked. "I just help where I can. You know that." "Yeah," Sola said, rolling her eyes. "It's your hair too. Everyone stares at it. Every time." "I didn't ask for it," Zuri said softly, touching the long white strands that cascaded down her back like moonlight. "Mama warned me to protect it. That's all I do." Ijeoma's lips tightened. "Protect it? But for how long? What happens when everyone knows it isn't just hair? It's magic. People talk, Zuri. They envy you. Don't you see?" Zuri frowned. I just want to live like everyone else. I don't want to hurt anyone." The other three exchanged a glance, silent, but the seed was planted. Envy did not roar. It crept. It waited. That evening, as the girls walked back to their homes, Zuri noticed Tamika lingering behind, staring at her hair. "What are you looking at?" Zuri asked. Tamika's eyes flickered with something unfamiliar. Fascination mixed with greed. Nothing, she said quickly, stepping away. Zuri frowned, uneasy. You've been acting strange lately. What's going on? Tamika shook her head, pretending to laugh. You're imagining things. But Zuri wasn't imagining it. She could feel it, a cold undercurrent like a shadow brushing against her soul. Her hair, her constant protector, seemed to hum softly, warning her, pulling her closer to Amaka when the world felt uncertain. At home, Amaka noticed Zuri's unease. What's troubling you, child? She asked as she brushed Zuri's hair, knot by knot. Nothing, Mama, Zuri said, but her voice lacked conviction. Amaka's eyes narrowed. She had sensed the change too, the subtle shift in the air around Zuri, the way her friend's eyes lingered too long. Her motherly instincts flared, warning bells ringing loud. Listen to me, Amaka said, her tone sharp but low. You must guard your hair with your life. One cut, one mistake, and the forest will reclaim what it has given. You understand? Zuri nodded solemnly. I understand, Mama. I promise. Yet the unease did not leave her. At night she lay awake, hearing whispers carried on the wind through the village streets. Small mocking voices repeating her name, her hair, her powers. And in the depths of her heart, she sensed that something was coming. A fracture, a betrayal, one she could not prevent on her own. Weeks later, during the village festival, Zuri's friends began to behave differently in public. Compliments turned into comparisons. Laughter felt sharp and pointed. And every time Zuri turned, she caught Sola staring at her hair as though plotting, while Tamika whispered to Ijeoma, barely audible. Zuri's chest tightened with a mix of fear and confusion. She ran back to Amaka that evening, clutching her hair protectively. Mama, they're changing, she whispered. I feel it. Something's wrong with them. They're jealous. Amaka's face darkened. She took Zuri's small hands in hers. I've warned you, child. The heart of envy can destroy even the strongest friendship. Guard yourself. Guard what you cannot lose. And always trust the forest more than anyone else. Zuri nodded, but even as she lay down to sleep that night, the hairs on her neck stood on end. Somewhere hidden behind smiles and laughter, jealousy had begun to move. The forest itself seemed to lean closer, shadows stretching long across her window. And though Zuri did not know it yet, the day was approaching when her hair and her life would be tested in ways she could never imagine. The next morning, Zuri woke to the faint scent of smoke curling in from the village. She rubbed her eyes and hurried outside, her hair glinting in the first rays of sunlight. The market was alive with people preparing for the festival, but Zuri felt a prickling in her chest, unease she could not shake. Her three friends approached, walking side by side, their faces sunny masks that did not reach their eyes. Zuri, come see the decorations. Ijeoma called, tugging her forward. Zuri smiled, forcing lightness into her voice. I'm coming. But as she followed, she noticed Sola and Tamika exchanging a quick glance, lips pressing into thin lines. Something about the look made her stomach twist. What are you two whispering about? She asked, stepping between them. Nothing, Sola said too quickly. Just planning surprises for the festival. Zuri frowned. For me. Tamika's smile was slow, calculated. Of course. You'll love it. Zuri felt a twinge of doubt, but she shook it off. She wanted to trust them. They had been her closest friends for years, after all. The day passed in a blur of games, dancing, and food. Zuri's laughter rang out above the crowd, a bell of light in the heat of the festival. People admired her, whispered about her hair, and bowed respectfully when she passed. Yet every now and then, she caught a subtle glare from Sola or a barely hidden scowl from Tamika. As night fell and the festival fires burned low, Zuri ran off to her favorite clearing, where she often played alone, the forest breathing around her like an old friend. Zuri! A voice called from the shadows. She turned. It was Ijeoma, stepping out hesitantly. I wanted to show you something, Ijeoma said, her voice soft. Just the two of us. Zuri hesitated. Her heart told her something was off, but she nodded. Okay. They walked into the trees, deeper than Zuri usually went. The air cooled, shadows stretching like fingers. Zuri's instincts screamed at her to turn back, to run to her mother, but the bond of friendship made her ignore the warning. You trust me, right? Ijeoma asked, a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. Zuri smiled. Always. Ijeoma hesitated, then slowly reached out toward Zuri's hair. Zuri flinched, stepping back. Don't touch it, she warned, voice tight. It's just to see. Ijeoma whispered, her fingers trembling. I'm not hurting it. I've never seen anything like it. Zuri's hand shot up to protect the glowing strands. Mama said no one must ever touch it. Ijeoma looked away, a shadow of guilt crossing her face, but Sola and Tamika appeared silently behind them, their eyes fixed on Zuri's hair like hunters circling prey. We just want to help, Sola said, voice syrupy. To make sure it's safe. Zuri's heart pounded. You're lying. Leave it alone. But the three friends advanced, careful, slow, almost hypnotically. Zuri felt the weight of their desire pressing down on her, suffocating and cold. She backed up, tripping over a root, and the moonlight caught the edges of Sola's knife, small, sharp, and glinting. Her scream tore through the night. I said no. But it was too late to run. Their hands reached out, and Zuri braced herself for the impossible, the breaking of the rule, the theft of her life. And in that instant the forest seemed to pause. The wind stilled, the animals went silent, and the trees leaned closer, watching, waiting. Zuri knew in her bones that something terrible was about to happen. Zuri's scream tore through the forest, but it was drowned out by the laughter of her friends, soft and venomous, as if it had been rehearsed. Just a little trim, Tamika whispered, her hand hovering over the shining white hair. No one will know. Zuri stumbled backward, clutching her hair to her chest. I said no. Stop. You don't understand. But Sola and Ijeoma closed in, circling her like wolves, eyes fixed on that moonlit hair. The knife in Sola's hand caught the glow of the moon again, and Zuri's pulse hammered in her ears. No, she cried, but it was futile. Their hands reached for her, gripping her shoulders, and before she could react, a sharp blade sliced through a strand of her hair. The instant the cut was made, the forest gasped. The wind howled like 1,000 voices, the leaves twisting violently, and a sudden chill dropped over the clearing. Zuri fell to her knees, white strands of hair slipping through her fingers, her body trembling violently. It's nothing, Sola said, but even she flinched as the ground trembled beneath them. Zuri's eyes rolled back, and her arms fell limply at her sides. Her breathing slowed, shallow, almost non-existent. The forest screamed in silence, the trees groaning and bending as if in fury. A shadow swept across the moon, and the baby who had once brought light now lay motionless, lifeless in the center of the clearing. Amaka, far away, felt it instantly. A scream tore from her throat before she even understood why. Her heart twisted violently as if Zuri's pain had pierced her own chest. She ran through the forest faster than she had ever run before, branches tearing at her, her breath ragged and uneven. Zuri! Zuri, hold on! She shouted, tears stinging her eyes. Please don't leave me. When she reached the clearing, she froze. The three friends stood frozen, pale and terrified, their hands shaking. Zuri lay on the ground, her hair cut unevenly, her glowing life force dimmed to almost nothing. No, this can't be happening, Amaka whispered, dropping to her knees beside her daughter. She lifted Zuri into her arms, holding her close, rocking her as her tears soaked Zuri's shirt. I'm sorry, Mama, Zuri whispered faintly, her voice barely audible. I didn't mean. Amaka pressed her lips to Zuri's forehead, trembling violently. Shoo, it's not your fault, my child. It's not your fault. The forest itself seemed to react, its fury undeniable. A low rumble shook the earth, and the trees bent as if trying to crush the three girls who had caused this. The wind screamed through the clearing, carrying the scent of damp soil and ancient power. You must pay, a voice thundered from the shadows. It was deep, layered, omnipresent, Nkiru, the forest spirit. The girls fell to. Zuri's body twitched faintly, her glowing hair flickering, as if responding to her mother's plea. The three friends stared, frozen in horror and disbelief, realizing that their jealousy had almost destroyed a life, and that only a love stronger than fear or envy could repair it. Amaka pressed Zuri tightly to her chest, rocking back and forth as though her own heartbeat could force life back into her daughter. The forest had gone still, the air so heavy it felt like walking through water. Nkiru's presence wrapped around them, silent yet unbearably powerful. Please, Amaka whispered, tears soaking Zuri's small shoulders. Please take me instead. Take me, just don't take her. The trees trembled. A low hum filled the clearing, vibrating through Amaka's bones. Shadows shifted, and then a voice, layered and ancient, spoke. Your heart is true. Your love is complete. Are you willing to give yourself entirely? Amaka's chest ached, fear clawing at her throat. But she nodded, voice steady despite the shaking. Yes. I would give my life, my soul, everything if it means she lives. The wind whipped around her, tearing at her wrapper and hair. The earth beneath her knees trembled violently. Zuri's tiny body convulsed as a soft glow returned to her hair, faint at first, then spreading like moonlight flooding the clearing. Amaka. Zuri's voice was barely a whisper. Mama? Shoo. I'm here, my child. Amaka whispered, kissing her forehead. It's okay. I won't let you go. The forest pulsed, the air thick with power. The girls who had caused this horror shrank back. Terror etched into their faces. Sola dropped the knife, stumbling backward, while Tamika and Igioma clutched each other, tears streaking their cheeks. Then, with a sound like a sigh of the earth itself, Zuri's eyes opened. They glowed softly, pale and luminescent. She stirred in Amaka's arms, weak but alive. She's alive, Igioma breathed. Amaka pressed Zuri closer, feeling the warmth returning to her small body. Yes, yes, she is. Thanks to love. Nkiru's voice rang through the clearing one final time. Zuri, you have been returned to the world of humans. But understand this, your gifts, your powers, they are now tied to choice. If you remain fully human, you will never possess them again. If you leave the human world, your magic may return. Zuri looked up at her mother, eyes wide. Mama. I want to stay. Amaka hugged her fiercely, feeling every heartbeat, every breath, every tiny pulse of life. Then we stay together. No matter what. The forest pulsed one last time, and Zuri's hair began to grow back. But instead of the pure white strands that had marked her as special, it was now half white, half black. A symbol of the bond between spirit and human life. The three friends knelt on the ground, horror-stricken as Nkiru's judgment fell. Their hair fell away, strands drifting like ashes on the wind, leaving them bald. Their jealousy had been punished, and the lesson was written into their very appearance. Amaka held Zuri close, whispering, You are safe. You are mine. Zuri looked up, blinking, her small hand gripping her mother's. I am safe. We're safe. Yes, my child, Amaka said, tears streaming freely. Forever. The forest seemed to exhale, leaves rustling gently as if satisfied. The threat had passed. But the lesson remained. Jealousy destroys, sacrifice saves, and love, real true love, is stronger than even death itself. And from that day forward, mother and daughter lived quietly, their lives simple but full, free from the fear of magic and envy. They walked through the village hand in hand, the villagers now whispering not of curses, but of love and sacrifice, and of the girl whose hair had once held her life. The sun rose slowly over Umidike, casting warm light across the village. The events of the forest clearing felt like a dream to some, a warning to others. But for Amaka and Zuri it was life itself, fragile, renewed, and precious. Zuri's days returned to a rhythm of ordinary life, yet nothing was ordinary anymore. She helped her mother in the market, fetched water from the river, and tended to the small garden they had cultivated together. Her hair, now half white and half black, shimmered in the sun, a quiet testament to the miracle she had survived. Villagers no longer stared with fear. Instead, they treated her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Children followed her, asking questions, listening to her laughter, and learning from the quiet strength that radiated from her small frame. One afternoon, a boy approached her by the river, staring wide-eyed at her hair. Zuri, is it true? He asked hesitantly. Did the forest really protect you? Zuri smiled softly. I was protected, yes, but not by magic alone. Love saved me. The boy nodded, eyes wide, and ran back to tell the others. The whisper spread through the village, but they carried awe, not envy. Amaka watched her daughter from a distance, brushing the strands of hair that framed her face. You're learning, my child, she said softly. People will watch and they will talk. But you must always guard your heart. Guard what cannot be taken from you. Love, courage, and your choices. Zuri nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but also the warmth of freedom. She could live without fear, live without the constant shadow of danger. Her heart had learned the strength of sacrifice, and her bond with her mother was unbreakable. Even Sola, Tamika, and Igioma had changed. Bald and humbled, they avoided her when possible, learning their lesson in silence. Occasionally they approached quietly to help with small tasks, offering gestures of remorse. Zuri accepted them politely but kept her distance, remembering the night when jealousy had almost cost her life. At home, Zuri and Amaka shared quiet evenings beneath the stars. The forest whispered around them, but it no longer carried threats. Instead, it hummed gently, a reminder of life reclaimed and lessons learned. "Mama," Zuri said one evening, her fingers brushing the black and white strands of her hair, "I think I understand now. The forest gave me life, but it also taught me something more. That love is stronger than fear, stronger than envy, stronger than anything else." Amaka wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her close. "Yes, my child. That is the greatest power you will ever have. Never forget it." The village of Umidike, once a place of whispers and envy, began to celebrate life itself. And Zuri, the child whose hair had held her life, continued to grow, laugh, and learn. Not as a magical being, but as a human who had known the deepest fear and survived it through love. Years passed quickly. Zuri grew taller, stronger, her half-white, half-black hair flowing behind her like a banner of survival. The villagers no longer whispered fearfully. Instead, they watched her with quiet admiration. She was no longer just the girl of the forest. She was a symbol of life, resilience, and love. But growing up brought new challenges. At 12, she noticed the subtle whispers of the village children, the sideways glances of adults, and the questions that poked at her heart. "Why is her hair like that?" a boy asked one day, pointing at Zuri as she helped Amaka carry baskets of yams. "It's magic," another whispered, eyes wide. Zuri stopped, her small hands tightening on the basket. "It's just hair," she muttered, but her cheeks burned. She had grown used to whispers, yet she still felt the weight of their curiosity. Amaka noticed. That evening, she combed Zuri's hair carefully, knot by knot. "People may stare," she said, "but you are not defined by their fear or envy. You are defined by love, by courage, and by the choices you make." Zuri nodded, biting her lip. "I try, Mama. I try to be like everyone else, but it's hard. Being yourself is never easy," Amaka said softly, brushing the long strands of hair. "Especially when others are tempted by jealousy. But remember, love will always guide you if you let it." At 13, Zuri began to notice her 3 old friends watching her from afar. Sola, Tamika, and Igioma had kept their distance, but the glances were unmistakable. Curiosity mixed with shame, and something darker that Zuri couldn't quite name. "Why do they look at me like that, Mama?" she asked one evening. "They are learning," Amaka said, sighing. "And jealousy, it can linger even after punishment. Watch them, but do not let them touch your heart. Remember the forest's lesson." Zuri nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. She could feel the power of her past, the stolen moment, the near-death experience, like a quiet drumbeat in her chest. She understood now that her life was fragile and precious. By 14, she had begun helping the villagers in earnest. She assisted with healing minor wounds, calming frightened children, and even predicting storms. People came to respect her not for magic alone but for her bravery, her compassion, and the quiet authority she carried. Yet the shadow of the past never fully disappeared. At night, when the wind rustled through the trees, Zuri sometimes felt the tug of the forest in her hair, a gentle reminder that her life had once been borrowed, and that one day the true test would come. Amaka too could feel it. Each year that passed, each day that Zuri survived, the looming 18th birthday felt closer. And though they were safe for now, the mother in her feared what would come. "Time is moving faster than I can hold it," Amaka whispered one night, brushing Zuri's hair until it shone under the candlelight. "Stay strong, my child. And never forget. The forest watches and love will be your shield." Zuri closed her eyes, letting the words settle in her heart. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She would face it with her mother by her side, no matter what it demanded. By 15, Zuri had become a quiet legend in Umidike village. People admired her for her wisdom, her gentle hands, and her courage, but admiration often bred envy. Even her closest friends, Sola, Tamika and Ijeoma could not escape it. One afternoon, while Zuri helped the women carry water from the river, she noticed the three whispering among themselves, glancing at her hair with furtive eyes. What are they planning? She asked herself quietly, her stomach twisting. That evening, as the sun sank behind the trees and the village cooled, Zuri approached them. Why do you always stare at me? She asked. Her voice was calm, but her sharp gaze held a warning. Tamika laughed lightly, too lightly. We're just talking, Zuri. Nothing to worry about. I see, Zuri said, her tone clipped. And I suppose it's a coincidence that every time we talk, your eyes are on my hair? Sola's face flushed red. It's not like that. We don't mean any harm. Zuri shook her head slowly, not stepping closer. Your eyes tell a different story. Be careful. Jealousy is quiet at first, but it grows until it devours everything. Ijeoma looked down, guilt flickering across her features. We just admire it, she whispered. It's beautiful and powerful. Zuri's heart thumped, a mix of anger and sorrow. She had once trusted them completely. Now that trust was trembling on the edge of a knife. Amaka, sensing her daughter's unrest that evening, took Zuri's hands in hers. You must guard not only your hair, child, but your heart. True friendship is rare. Jealousy will gnaw at even the closest of bonds. Protect yourself. Zuri nodded, brushing her hair over one shoulder. I will, Mama. I won't let them, not again. But even as she said the words, the subtle shadows of envy grew heavier in the eyes of her friends. They whispered late at night when Zuri wasn't listening, their desire unspoken but thick, a storm gathering quietly. Zuri noticed it in small things. The way Sola's hand lingered near the glint of her hair, the way Tamika's gaze tracked her movements, the way Ijeoma hesitated before laughing, eyes flicking toward the child she once adored. One evening, Zuri sat under the forest's edge, speaking softly to herself. I will be careful. I will protect myself. I will not let the past repeat. The forest seemed to respond, leaves rustling gently as if acknowledging her resolve. But deep in the shadows a soft murmur carried on the wind. A warning perhaps, or a promise. The 18th birthday was approaching, and the quiet envy that had simmered for years was ready to strike. The night air was thick and still. Zuri sat near the edge of the forest, her half-white, half-black hair cascading over her shoulders like a river of shadow and moonlight. The wind whispered secrets she couldn't quite understand, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Meanwhile, Sola, Tamika and Ijeoma huddled in the shadowed corner of the village, their faces pale in the flickering lamplight. We can't wait much longer, Sola said, her voice tight. She's cautious now. She'll notice if we try anything too soon. Maybe we don't need to wait, Tamika murmured, glancing down at her trembling hands. If we just touch it just a little, nothing bad will happen. Ijeoma shook her head violently. No. We almost killed her before. We can't do anything rash. But we have to, she's turning 18 soon. That's when everything changes. Sola clenched her fists. 18 years of everyone staring at her, talking about her, whispering her name. We've suffered in silence. And now the forest gave her back everything while we were left behind. We deserve a chance to. Ijeoma's eyes flicked toward the forest where Zuri sat, glowing faintly in the moonlight. But if we do this, what if she dies? Tamika's voice was sharp. Then it's her fault for being special, for being gifted. We've been patient too long. We can't let this go. The three of them fell silent, each imagining Zuri's hair in their hands, the power it represented. The thought made their hearts pound, adrenaline mixing with guilt and desire. Back in the forest, Zuri shivered. Something was wrong. She could feel it. A tension in the air, a shadow pressing at her back, subtle but unmistakable. She turned, but no one was there. Mama, she whispered softly, her voice trembling. Something's coming. Amaka, standing nearby, placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. I know, child. The forest has been warning us for weeks. Keep your heart steady. Your hair is not just beauty. It is life. Guard it as you would your soul. Zuri nodded, eyes wide and alert. I will, Mama. I won't let anything happen again. But as the wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of danger, she didn't notice the glint of a blade under the moonlight, hidden behind a tree. She didn't notice the quiet footsteps of the three girls as they crept closer, voices muffled but hearts racing with envy and fear. And in that instant the forest leaned closer, shadows stretching long and warning, the calm before the storm. The 18th birthday was almost here. And soon the choice between life, love, and loss would arrive. The village slept under a blanket of stars, unaware of the storm gathering at its edge. Zuri lay in her small room, half asleep, half alert. She had a strange sensation in her chest, a tightness that would not go away. The forest whispered softly outside her window, carrying warnings she could almost understand. "Mama," she murmured, eyes fluttering open. "I feel something tonight. It's wrong." Amaka, sitting nearby, brushed Zuri's hair gently, her own hands trembling slightly. "I know, child. The air is heavy, and the shadows are restless. Stay close to me. Trust the forest, but trust your instincts even more." Meanwhile, Sola, Tamika, and Igioma huddled near the edge of the village, the glint of a small knife catching the starlight. Their hands shook, but determination set their jaws. "Tonight is our chance," Sola whispered, voice low and urgent. "If we do it now, she won't expect us. She trusts us too much." Tamika's eyes darted toward the sleeping huts. "Are you sure this is the only way?" Igioma's face was pale, lips pressed tightly together. "We've waited too long. She's turning 18 in 2 days. If we don't act, someone else will. We deserve this, at least a piece of what she has." The three of them crept closer to the clearing where Zuri often played, moving silently across the grass. Every step carried the weight of their envy and fear, but also the thrill of anticipation. Back in the hut, Zuri stirred, restless. She couldn't explain it, but her hair seemed to pulse with warning. She tried to shake off the unease. "Mama, I can't sleep," she admitted, sitting up. Amaka pulled her close. "I know, my child. Something is stirring. Keep your hair close to you. Don't let anyone near it." Zuri nodded, hugging herself tightly. "I promise, Mama." Outside, the three friends paused at the edge of the clearing. Their breaths were shallow. Sola glanced at the others. "We do this carefully. We just cut a little. She won't die. It will only be." But Igioma's whisper cut through the night like a knife. "We can't stop now. We've come too far. Tonight it ends." The forest stirred, leaves rustling as if in warning. Zuri, awake now, felt a cold pressure in the air, a heaviness that made her heart pound. She glanced toward the edge of the clearing, sensing movement, hearing soft whispers that weren't carried by the wind. "Mama, something's coming," she whispered urgently. Amaka grabbed her hand, eyes wide. "I know, child. Stay close to me. Trust your heart, not theirs." And as the shadows moved closer, as the three figures crept toward Zuri, the forest held its breath, preparing for the inevitable, the test of love, trust, and sacrifice that had been counting down for 18Y. The clearing was bathed in a blinding light as Amaka pressed herself over Zuri, her hands clutching her daughter's fragile body. Every heartbeat, every breath was a prayer. The forest pulsed around them, shadows twisting like living tendrils, waiting for the truth of love to prove itself. "I give everything, my life, my soul, my heart," Amaka screamed, tears streaming down her face. "Just bring her back. Please, my child." The air thickened. Leaves swirled violently, branches bending toward the mother and child, as if the entire forest leaned in to witness this act. Nkiru's voice thundered, both calm and terrifying. "Love that sacrifices itself is the force that can conquer death. Are you willing to surrender all for the life of another?" "I am." Amaka's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. "All of me. Take me if you must, but let her live." A wave of energy erupted from the forest floor, bright and consuming. Zuri's body twitched, then shuddered. A soft glow returned to her hair, the black and white strands catching the light, intertwining like threads of moon and shadow. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. "Mama?" Her voice was small, trembling. "Yes, my love," Amaka whispered, cradling her daughter. "You're safe. You're alive." The three friends collapsed onto the ground, terrified as their punishment began. One by one, their hair fell away in clumps, drifting to the earth like ash. Bald and shivering, Sola, Tamika, and Igioma stared at Zuri and Amaka in horror. Nkiru's judgment was clear. Envy carries a price, and jealousy that threatens life itself cannot go unpunished. Zuri touched her newly regrown hair, now half white, half black, feeling the warmth and life flowing through her again. Mama, it's okay. I'm alive. We're alive. Yes, child, Amaka said, hugging her tightly. Love saved you. Sacrifice saved you. And now life continues. Together. The forest seemed to sigh, a gentle wind rustling the leaves in approval. The danger had passed. Balance had returned. Life had been reclaimed through love, and jealousy had been met with justice. The three friends huddled silently, ashamed and humbled, learning in silence the weight of envy and the value of trust. Their lesson would not be forgotten. Nor would Zuri's triumph over fear, betrayal, and the threat of death. Mother and daughter sat beneath the clearing's silvered moonlight, hearts pounding, bodies trembling yet alive. The village would remember this night for generations. A tale of sacrifice, love, and the power that lies in choosing life over fear. Zuri pressed her face to Amaka's chest. I don't need magic, Mama. I just need you. Amaka kissed the top of her head. And that is the greatest gift of all, my child. The forest whispered gently, calm and protective now. Life had been preserved. Love had triumphed. And the bond between mother and daughter would never be broken. Amaka held Zuri tightly, her body trembling from the chill of fear and the weight of her resolve. Her tears soaked Zuri's small frame, but she didn't let go. Please, Nkuru, take me instead. My life, my soul. Everything. Just bring her back, Amaka begged, her voice breaking but unwavering. The forest pulsed around them. Trees groaned, roots twisting as if reaching toward her, leaves whipping violently in the wind. The three friends stumbled backward, frozen, as if invisible hands held them in place. You are willing to give yourself entirely? Nkiru's voice thundered, yet carried an echo of calm judgment and expectation. I am, Amaka whispered, pressing her forehead to Zuri's. Take me. Let her live. For a heartbeat the world seemed to pause. Then a wave of light erupted from the forest floor, enveloping Zuri. Her small body twitched violently. The faint glow in her hair pulsed rapidly, brighter and brighter, until it filled the clearing with a soft, radiant light. Zuri's eyelids fluttered. Mama, she whispered, her voice weak, barely audible. Amaka pressed her lips to Zuri's forehead, her chest heaving. I'm here, child. I've got you. The energy of the forest coalesced around them, spinning in delicate threads of white and black. Slowly Zuri's breathing deepened, her eyes opened, glowing softly with life once more. She clutched Amaka's hands. Mama, I'm alive. Yes, my love, Amaka said, tears streaming. You're alive. Because love is stronger than death. The three friends fell to the ground, horror-stricken. Their hair began to fall in clumps, drifting through the air like ashes. Bald and shivering, they stared at Zuri and Amaka, realizing the enormity of their envy and the consequences it had wrought. Nkiru's voice boomed, yet soft enough to tremble with power. Jealousy destroys what love protects. Your hearts were poisoned. Now you carry the reminder of your choice. Zuri's hair, once purely white, had regrown, but now it was half black, half white, a permanent symbol of the blend of human and spirit worlds, of life reclaimed through sacrifice. Amaka wrapped her arms around Zuri, hugging her close. You are safe. You are alive. We are together. Zuri pressed her face against her mother's chest, tears of relief flowing freely. I don't need magic, Mama. I just need you. Amaka kissed the top of her head. And that is the greatest gift of all, my child. The forest seemed to exhale, a gentle wind rustling the trees as if satisfied that balance had returned. Life had been preserved. Love had triumphed. And jealousy had been punished. The three girls, ashamed and broken, would never forget the lesson. The village would whisper of that night for generations, not only of magic and hair, but of love, sacrifice, and the cost of envy. And in that moment, mother and daughter sat together under the clearing's pale moonlight, knowing that the trials of life had only made their bond stronger. The sun rose slowly over Umudike, casting warm light across the village. The events of the forest clearing felt like a dream to some, a warning to others. But for Amaka and Zuri it was life itself, fragile, renewed, and precious. Zuri's days returned to a rhythm of ordinary life, yet nothing was ordinary anymore. She helped her mother in the market, fetched water from the river, and tended to the small garden they had cultivated together. Her hair, now half white and half black, shimmered in the sun, a quiet testament to the miracle she had survived. Villagers no longer stared with fear. Instead, they treated her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Children followed her, asking questions, listening to her laughter, and learning from the quiet strength that radiated from her small frame. One afternoon, a boy approached her by the river, staring wide-eyed at her hair. "Zuri, is it true?" he asked hesitantly. Did the forest really protect you?" Zuri smiled softly. "I was protected, yes. But not by magic alone. Love saved me." The boy nodded, eyes wide, and ran back to tell the others. The whisper spread through the village, but they carried awe, not envy. Amaka watched her daughter from a distance, brushing the strands of hair that framed her face. "You're learning, my child," she said softly. "People will watch and they will talk. But you must always guard your heart. Guard what cannot be taken from you. Love, courage, and your choices." Zuri nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but also the warmth of freedom. She could live without fear, live without the constant shadow of danger. Her heart had learned the strength of sacrifice, and her bond with her mother was unbreakable. Even Sola, Tamika, and Igioma had changed. Bald and humbled, they avoided her when possible, learning their lesson in silence. Occasionally, they approached quietly to help with small tasks, offering gestures of remorse. Zuri accepted them politely but kept her distance, remembering the night when jealousy had almost cost her life. At home, Zuri and Amaka shared quiet evenings beneath the stars. The forest whispered around them, but it no longer carried threats. Instead, it hummed gently, a reminder of life reclaimed and lessons learned. "Mama," Zuri said one evening, her fingers brushing the black and white strands of her hair. "I think I understand now. The forest gave me life, but it also taught me something more. That love is stronger than fear, stronger than envy, stronger than anything else." Amaka wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her close. "Yes, my child. That is the greatest power you will ever have. Never forget it." The village of Umidike, once a place of whispers and envy, began to celebrate life itself. And Zuri, the child whose hair had held her life, continued to grow, laugh, and learn. Not as a magical being, but as a human who had known the deepest fear and survived it through love. By 16, Zuri had become a quiet anchor in the village. Children sought her out, mothers nodded respectfully when she passed, and even elders consulted her on small matters, remembering the story of her near-death and miraculous revival. Yet life was not without challenges. Adolescence brought new questions, new emotions, and the subtle pressures of being different. Some villagers still whispered, curious or fearful of her hair, while a few children attempted to provoke her with questions about magic. One afternoon, while helping at the river, a boy splashed water at her, laughing. "Hey Zuri, bet your hair can't save you from this," he shouted. Zuri's eyes narrowed, but she smiled gently. "It doesn't need to save me," she said. "I'm careful enough myself." The boy blinked, unsure, and ran off. Zuri laughed softly to herself, realizing that power sometimes lay in restraint, not in display. At home, Amaka noticed the subtle changes in her daughter, the growing maturity, the confidence in her voice, and the gentle authority she carried. "You're learning," Amaka said one evening as she braided Zuri's hair. "Life will test you in ways that magic cannot fix. And every time it does, remember courage and love are your shields." Zuri nodded, listening carefully. She had begun to understand that life was more about the choices she made than the power she had once been given. The three friends, Sola, Tamika, and Igioma, had faded into the background of her life. Bald and humbled, they sometimes attempted small acts of kindness, but Zuri kept her distance, aware that jealousy leaves scars even when forgiven. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Zuri ventured to the edge of the forest alone. She felt the wind brushing her hair, and with it came memories of the night her life had almost ended. Her heart thumped, not with fear but with resolve. "I won't forget," she whispered to the trees. "I'll protect myself and I'll live. I'll live for Mama and for me." The forest seemed to respond, leaves rustling gently, as if acknowledging her courage. The lessons of her past had shaped her. Love, sacrifice, and vigilance were now inseparable parts of who she had become. And though her 18th birthday loomed, the sense of impending trial that had haunted her youth now carried a different weight. She wasn't a frightened child anymore. She had survived envy, death, and loss. She was ready to face whatever came next. Not as the magical girl the forest had gifted, but as a strong human daughter of Amaka. As Zuri approached her 18th birthday, the forest seemed to hum with quiet warnings. Leaves rustled even on still days, shadows lingered longer than usual, and the wind carried whispers that made her pause mid-step. One evening, as she walked the familiar path to the river, she felt a chill run through her. The sun had dipped, casting long fingers of shadow across the clearing. Her half-white, half-black hair glimmered in the fading light, a silent reminder of what had been lost and gained. "Mama," she whispered when she returned home, brushing past Amaka. "The forest, it feels different. I think something is coming." Amaka's hands froze mid-weave of Zuri's hair. Her eyes softened but held a weight of caution. "Yes, my child. The forest has always been alive, and it knows your birthday approaches. But remember, you survived once because of love. That is the shield that will protect you again." Zuri nodded, her gaze drifting to the window, toward the darkening treeline. She remembered the betrayal of Sola, Tamika, and Igioma. The envy that had almost ended her life. Her stomach twisted. Could it happen again? She shook her head, refusing to dwell on fear. The days leading to her birthday were marked by small signs from the forest. Branches that bent as she passed, animal eyes that lingered too long, sudden gusts of wind that seemed almost like whispers. Zuri began speaking to herself quietly during these walks. "I've learned. I've survived. I know now that life is not about magic. It's about love, courage, and keeping your heart steady. I will not falter. I will not fear what others do or think. The forest can test me, but it cannot control me if I trust Mama. If I trust myself." Amaka watched from the hut, her heart aching with the weight of her daughter's burden. 18 years of life, and yet the true test lies ahead. She whispered to the wind. "My child, may love and sacrifice guide you, as they always have." Even the villagers sensed something unusual. Animals gathered near the outskirts, their eyes glinting in the shadows, and the night air seemed thick with expectation. Zuri slept fitfully those nights, dreamt of shadows and whispered voices. Yet she awoke each morning stronger, more resolved. Every morning she ran her fingers through her black and white hair and whispered, "I survived once. I can survive again." Unseen in the deepest part of the forest, Nkiru watched. The forest spirit's presence was calm but watchful, like a tide ready to surge. The final day approached, the day that would demand everything from Zuri, testing the lessons of her past and the depth of her bond with her mother. Her 18th birthday was no longer just a celebration. It was the point where life, love, and choice would collide, where the past shadows would meet the present, and Zuri would face the ultimate decision of trust, courage, and heart. The morning of Zuri's 18th birthday dawned bright and deceptively calm. Birds sang hesitantly in the trees, and the sun painted the village in gold. Yet beneath the calm, the forest pulsed with a subtle, restless energy, as if holding its breath for what was about to unfold. Zuri awoke early, brushing her half-white, half-black hair carefully, running her fingers through each strand as if to anchor herself. Her heart beat steadily. Not with fear but with quiet resolve. "Mama," she whispered, stepping into the kitchen. "Today feels different." Amaka looked up from preparing breakfast, eyes soft but sharp. "It does, my child. The forest stirs. Stay close to me. Keep your heart steady. Remember all you have learned." Zuri nodded, feeling the weight of every lesson, every past trial. She would not falter. As the day wore on, villagers arrived to celebrate her birthday. There was laughter, food, and small games. But Zuri felt the shadows pressing at the edges, the subtle glances of Sola, Tamika, and Igioma, who had watched from afar all day. Their envy simmered, restrained only by fear of the forest's wrath and the memory of past consequences. Later, as the sun dipped low, the three friends approached under the pretense of apology. "Zuri, we just want to celebrate with you," Sola said, forcing a smile, hands hidden behind her back. Zuri narrowed her eyes, sensing the tension. "I see," she replied evenly. "Thank you, but today I am not worried about your gifts. I'm focused on my own life and my mother's." Igioma's eyes flicked toward her hair, then away. "It's beautiful," she whispered, voice trembling. "Thank you," Zuri said softly, her tone measured. "But don't touch it. Remember the last time. I survived once, but only because love protected me. Envy cannot. Only love saves." Tamika's jaw tightened, her hands shaking. We need to see it, she said, voice cracking. Zuri's chest tightened. She remembered the forest's warning, the cold pressure in the air, the night she had almost died. She stepped back, placing herself behind Amaka. I warned you. Do not tempt fate. But Sola's hand darted forward, and in a heartbeat, she grabbed a lock of Zuri's hair. The moment the blade touched a strand, the world seemed to pause. The wind roared, a chilling gust that made the lantern swing violently. Zuri screamed, stumbling, clutching her hair. Her body convulsed violently, and her voice faltered. No! Mama! Amaka leapt forward, catching Zuri as the glow in her hair dimmed. Shadows twisting around the clearing. The air was thick with fury, the forest itself bending, shaking, warning. You dare defy the rule again? Nkiru's voice boomed, deep and impossibly vast, emanating from every tree, every leaf, every whispering shadow. The three friends fell to the ground, terrified beyond words. We didn't know, we didn't mean, Sola whimpered. Zuri's chest barely moved. Her small body lay limp in Amaka's arms. The forest was silent for a heartbeat, heavy, expectant, waiting for the act that would save or destroy. Amaka pressed her hands to Zuri's chest, tears streaming freely. Take me. Take me. Please don't take her. The forest exhaled, a gust of light swirling around mother and daughter, responding to the depth of Amaka's love. Zuri twitched faintly, a soft flicker of light returning to her hair, reacting to her mother's sacrifice. The moment hung in the air, life, death, love, and envy converging on a single heartbeat. The clearing was bathed in a blinding light as Amaka pressed herself over Zuri, her hands clutching her daughter's fragile body. Every heartbeat, every breath was a prayer. The forest pulsed around them, shadows twisting like living tendrils, waiting for the truth of love to prove itself. I give everything, my life, my soul, my heart. Amaka screamed, tears streaming down her face. Just bring her back. Please, my child. The air thickened. Leaves swirled violently, branches bending toward the mother and child, as if the entire forest leaned in to witness this act. Nkiru's voice thundered, both calm and terrifying. Love that sacrifices itself is the force that can conquer death. Are you willing to surrender all for the life of another? I am. Amaka's voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. All of me. Take me if you must, but let her live. A wave of energy erupted from the forest floor, bright and consuming. Zuri's body twitched, then shuddered. A soft glow returned to her hair, the black and white strands catching the light, intertwining like threads of moon and shadow. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. Mama? Her voice was small, trembling. Yes, my love, Amaka whispered, cradling her daughter. You're safe. You're alive. The three friends collapsed onto the ground, terrified as their punishment began. One by one, their hair fell away in clumps, drifting to the earth like ash. Bald and shivering, Sola, Tamika, and Igioma stared at Zuri and Amaka in horror. Nkiru's judgment was clear. Envy carries a price, and jealousy that threatens life itself cannot go unpunished. Zuri touched her newly regrown hair, now half white, half black, feeling the warmth and life flowing through her again. Mama, it's okay. I'm alive. We're alive. Yes, child, Amaka said, hugging her tightly. Love saved you. Sacrifice saved you. And now life continues. Together. The forest seemed to sigh, a gentle wind rustling the leaves in approval. The danger had passed. Balance had returned. Life had been reclaimed through love, and jealousy had been met with justice. The three friends huddled silently, ashamed and humbled, learning in silence the weight of envy and the value of trust. Their lesson would not be forgotten. Nor would Zuri's triumph over fear, betrayal, and the threat of death. Mother and daughter sat beneath the clearing's silvered moonlight, hearts pounding, bodies trembling yet alive. The village would remember this night for generations. A tale of sacrifice, love, and the power that lies in choosing life over fear. Zuri pressed her face to Amaka's chest. I don't need magic, Mama. I just need you. Amaka kissed the top of her head. And that is the greatest gift of all, my child. The forest whispered gently, calm and protective now. Life had been preserved. Love had triumphed. And the bond between mother and daughter would never be broken. The days after Zuri's 18th birthday were calm, filled with quiet joy and a renewed sense of life. The forest no longer carried warnings but gentle whispers, almost as if Nkiru herself was satisfied that balance had been restored. Zuri walked with Amaka through the village, her half-white, half-black hair gleaming in the sunlight. Children followed her, curious but respectful. Mothers nodded with gratitude when Zuri offered help, and elders spoke her name with reverence, remembering the miraculous night she had survived. "I feel free, Mama," Zuri said one afternoon, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Alive and not afraid." "Yes, my child," Amaka said softly, smiling. "You are free because love protected you, because we chose life together. Remember, that is always stronger than envy, fear, or magic." Even the three former friends had changed. Bald and humbled, they avoided her, learning the weight of their jealousy. Occasionally, they offered small gestures of respect, but Zuri welcomed them cautiously, remembering that forgiveness is a choice as much as love is. The forest watched silently, leaves rustling in soft agreement. Zuri and Amaka tended to their small garden, laughed at each other's jokes, and shared quiet nights beneath the stars. The bond between mother and daughter was unbreakable, strengthened not by magic but by trials, sacrifice, and unwavering love. Zuri often ran her fingers through her hair, now a permanent symbol of resilience, half black, half white, a reminder of life's fragility and the power of choices. "Mama," she whispered one evening, gazing at the twilight sky, "I understand now. Magic isn't what saved me. You saved me. Love saved me. Life saved me." Amaka hugged her tightly, tears brimming. "Yes, my child. Always remember. Love, courage, and sacrifice are stronger than any power. They are what truly shape a life." The village of Umidike began to whisper a new story. Not of fear or curses, but of bravery, love, and the girl whose hair had once held her life. A story of sacrifice, lessons learned, and life reclaimed. And so Zuri and Amaka lived peacefully, their days full of laughter, work, and quiet reflection. They had survived envy, betrayal, and the shadow of death, and they had chosen life together. Life was no longer about powers or magic. It was about love, trust, and the courage to protect what matters most. And to everyone watching this story, remember, true love is the greatest power of all. Protect it, cherish it, and never take it for granted. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of magic, love, and life lessons. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that love and sacrifice can conquer even the darkest moments.